It was the summer of my 15th year, during a sweltering August evening. My parents had left me home alone for the night, trusting that I could handle myself. They'd just begun letting me stay alone overnight, and I enjoyed the freedom it brought. That night, a thunderstorm rolled in, drenching the town in a heavy downpour. The constant flashes of lightning illuminated the sky while the rumbling thunder shook the windows. I've always found comfort in storms, their wild energy making the house feel even cozier. After dinner, I settled into the living room with my laptop, watching movies with my headphones on, the volume cranked up to drown out the storm. Hours passed and I was lost in the screen when, suddenly, a loud bang echoed through the house. I paused the movie and pulled off my headphones, but all I could hear was the wind howling outside. I figured it was just the storm, so I shrugged it off and got back to my movie. But then it happened again, this time louder, and it was unmistakable. Someone was knocking on the door. I froze, staring at the front door from across the room. It was almost midnight. Who could possibly be out in this storm? I hesitated, then slowly got up, my heart pounding in my chest. I crept toward the door, stopping a few feet away. The knocking came again, slow and deliberate. I reached for the door handle but stopped myself, peering through the peephole instead. What I saw sent a chill down my spine. Standing on the porch, just barely visible through the rain, was a figure drenched from head to toe. The streetlight flickered, casting eerie shadows across the person's face, but I couldn't make out any features beneath the hood they wore. The figure just stood there, head slightly bowed, waiting. My first instinct was to open the door and ask what they wanted, but something held me back. Instead, I stayed silent, hoping they would leave. The figure knocked again, more urgently this time. I backed away from the door, my mind racing with possibilities. Was it someone needing help or something more sinister? Then the knocking stopped. The figure stepped back off the porch and disappeared into the shadows. I waited for a few moments, then slowly walked to the front window and peeked out from behind the curtains. The rain was pouring down harder now, but there was no one in sight. Relieved, I tried to shake off the unease and went back to my movie, but I couldn't focus. My ears were tuned to every little sound, every creak of the house. The storm outside only seemed to intensify, the thunder rumbling closer and closer. Just when I was beginning to relax, there was a loud crash from the back of the house. I jumped up, heart racing, and ran to the kitchen where the noise had come from. The back door, which led out to our small fenced-in yard, was wide open, the wind slamming it against the wall. I was certain I had locked it earlier. I ran over and slammed the door shut, locking it tight. As I turned to leave, I noticed something on the floor, a wet footprint leading from the door toward the living room. My blood ran cold as I realized that whoever had knocked on the front door had found another way in. I quickly grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a kitchen knife, and slowly followed the trail of wet footprints. They led into the living room, but then they just stopped. No more prints, no sign of anyone. It was like they had just vanished. The storm outside was deafening now, the wind howling like a wild beast. I searched the house from top to bottom, but there was no one there. Finally, exhausted and terrified, I locked myself in my room and stayed up all night, clutching the knife and jumping at every sound. When my parents came home the next morning, they found me still in my room, wide-eyed and pale. I told them everything, but they dismissed it as my imagination playing tricks on me. The storm, they said, had probably blown the door open, but I knew better. Someone or something had been in the house that night. And though I never saw them again, the memory of that midnight visitor still haunts me whenever a storm rolls in.